Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my garden. I wanted to do a garden update video today before we actually hit the month of July. So I think it's the 28th of June today. And as we step into the garden, as usual, here on the left-hand side in the first bed is my strawberries. And I also have a really beautiful white lavender plant in the corner of that bed too that's looking really pretty this year. The rest of the raised beds this year are dahlias, and they are growing in very nicely. In fact, I have one of them that just started blooming today, so I'll show you that one here in a bit. But the plants are looking great. There are some that aren't coming up, and I think they're being eaten off by probably a little bunny rabbit. So I might have to put a mesh basket over them and see if I can get them to grow up anyway, that I can save the tuber for next year. But you can see a lot of them have put buds on and they're looking really, really great. The bed here in the middle, it looks like there's just a bunch of twigs and stuff stacked in there. Those are actually fancy daffodil leaves and stems that I just have kind of pressed down in between the dahlias that are growing up in that bed. But this bed also has a really beautiful sage plant there at the end. So that's a really lovely plant. It comes back every year, and every year it looks more and more beautiful. And you'll notice in my walkways are not as tidy as usual. But what I've left in the walkways are volunteer cosmos and bachelor buttons and occasionally some snapdragons. And so as those are blooming, those are being removed from the walkway. You can see my weed container back there. I've been filling it with weeds, but it's getting too heavy, so now I need to actually get it out of the garden so that I can continue to put the weeds that I've been pulling in my weed container and get those removed from my walkways. But isn't this little walkway cute? I love the little colorful violas that have come up in there, and there's also some snapdragons that volunteered in that row as well, so that's kind of like a makeshift little flower bed for me. But overall, I think the garden's looking okay. This is the first dahlia to bloom for me. That's a sweet Suzanne, and she's kind of just a yellowy peach ball dahlia, and I think she's going to be real pretty. So she just started opening early this morning. But I noticed she's got a little bug in there too I need to take care of. But so exciting to have the first flower blooming in the garden. So it's definitely not as tidy as I would like, but considering what I've been up to for the last 5 weeks or so, I think it looks pretty good. The blueberries have started to ripen. In the next 2 or 3 weeks or so, I'll probably have some blueberries I'll be able to pick, so that's pretty exciting. And then this year, I noticed that there's a lot of apricots on my tree. Actually, these are not apricots, these are yellow plums. Last year, I think I picked about 7 plums from the tree, and this year I'm going to have a whole bunch more, assuming all goes well. And one thing I noticed this year too, I don't really have any aphids. Last year the tree got hit really hard with aphids, and this year it doesn't seem to have any. In the cut flower garden area, just like the other garden area, it's not as tidy as I would like, but considering what I've been doing, I think it looks pretty good. Alan was kind enough to help me mow between the rows and get those tidied up a little bit, so that was nice, knocking down the weeds and actually making it look like there's rows in the garden. That first row looks kind of messy, but that's all volunteer stuff that overwintered and came back. So it's kind of just like a mix of things. This second row is sunflowers, status, and some volunteer feverfew down at the end, or I'll say volunteer, but it overwintered from last year. And then this is a row of snapdragons, which you can see I actually got some support netting on them before my little hospital hiatus. So they have grown up really nicely through the netting, and they're going to be beautiful. The next row is zinnias, and they are looking gorgeous. You can actually see some of them here have started to bloom. This pale pink color is the new ballerina seed from Johnny's, and then the orange and pink mix that you see there that's blooming, that's the new mix from Johnny's called Aurora. And then further up in that row, I believe, are my Blueberries giants, and then the next row over is also zinnias, and at the far end there's a big section of sunflowers. This is that Aurora mix from Johnny's again, and these have just started blooming in the last few days. So these are all the first blooms on the plant. And I did not pinch these, so when I do cut the first bloom, I will cut deep and encourage the plants to send up longer stems. But it's a really beautiful mix of colors, and so I'm really quite pleased with these so far. Peaches and yellows and oranges. So I just think they look really, really pretty. And then in the other row of zinnias, I have Blueberries Giants, but also my Queenie Lime series. So there's Queenie Lime Red, Orange, and Lemony Peach, and there probably is some Green Envy in here as well. And then at the far end, you can see I have a batch of sunflowers. The next row is all Cosmos, and there's even a bunch of Cosmos I see that volunteered in the walkway from last year. And at the end of the very end of the Cosmos, there are some Gomphrena. This row also has some Gomphrena and some sunflowers, and then the rest of this row is Strawflower with a beautiful volunteer yarrow in the walkway on either side of this bed. So when Alan was mowing the walkways for me, he did leave those. And then the next two rows are Dahlias and weeds. So the Dahlias are coming in okay. They're not as big and robust as the raised bed Dahlias, but the raised bed Dahlias were also planted first. So it only makes sense that they're nice and large. And but these are coming in nicely. And then the very last row in the garden is my tomatoes that I'm trellising on a cattle panel. This is some yarrow that came back from last year, and I think it's the summer berries mix. And then here's another beautiful section of it. There might be some vintage, I think it's called Vintage Rose in this one, is in this little grouping as well. But this berries mix is so pretty. I love the pinks. And then this is a little volunteer section too in one of my walkways. So I see them when they come up, and I just can't bear to pull them out when I know they're going to be so pretty. And then my feverfew, I didn't actually start any new feverfew this year. This is all feverfew that overwintered and is coming in so beautiful and nice. So that's great. And then this is a section of Sweet William that I planted last spring. This is a biennial, so it didn't flower last year, but it came in really nice this year and has started blooming and flowering really early. And then this is another section of feverfew where I intermixed some snapdragons where the feverfew didn't come back evenly in all of the holes that were available. So that's a look at the garden. Not as tidy as I would like, but like I said, considering what I've been up to for the last 5 weeks or so, I think it looks pretty nice. And I love seeing all the flowers starting to bloom. You can see I also just mowed the rest of the garden, all the grass and the weeds. I didn't get my pumpkins or zucchini or cucumbers planted, and I don't have any other space prepped for sunflowers either, so I need to figure that out because I do need to get some more sunflowers in the ground. But that's it. Thanks for joining me in the garden, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye.